Okay, the next thing that we're going to look at is participation and empowerment and their relationship. So these two together, they're critical to have each other in order to have success. Now, if we're looking from a community development point of view, whatever program or project is implemented, strategy is implemented into the community to develop it, is going to be reliant on participation. So if you have participation, you will need to have, for it to be sustainable, you're going to have a large amount of participation. If that participation isn't sustainable, then the program won't continue. The other part of the empowerment, what we're looking at is the empowerment aspect. With participation comes empowerment. So there is a direct relationship between the both. If you are participating in, say, a fun run or something that's contributing to raising money for, let's go with the HBF Run for a Reason, so you raise money, you complete I think it's a 12K run, and then you're participating in that event. If that's going to have and draw a large crowd of participants who feel like they can actually be involved and they're empowered to do something, then it's really going to enhance their involvement and their sense of value and, I guess, ownership of their own issues. So what we see is, with an increase in participation, there's a direct link to the increase in empowerment, and vice versa. And it's the whole chicken and the egg, which one comes first? Really hard to know. So there is a supplement reading in your textbook on this on page 128, which is really worth having a look into. And I've also provided some extra resources on Sector. I think there's a couple of resources on there. One's a link to an article which explains how participation and empowerment link together, and then there's another explanation of the two together. So one of them is a little bit more detailed and one is a lot less detailed, but it gives you the same idea of what's going to be happening. So before we can really understand it, we have to know what empowerment is. Now, the definition that we use, and this is directly from your textbook, is the increasing of spiritual, political, social, and economic strength of individuals and communities, and usually involves the development of confidence in their own capacities. So if we apply that concept, that definition, into what we know about empowering people, and you think about it in terms of developing a community, if we can empower the community to take control, increase their own capability and their own confidence in their capabilities, then we're more likely to see people really going ahead and trying to enact change. So if there was, if the issue was, say, homelessness, and we saw that more people were participating in, say, like a housing project where they'd provide shelter or accommodation for people. If we saw the community get involved in that and they saw a real benefit in that, increased participation, you might start to see an increase you're more likely to see an increase in empowerment, which is them really taking control and confidence in their own capabilities. You think about this in a sporting context. If you're playing a sport and you participate in a sport, you're learning some new skills. Let's go basketball. It's one we probably all can understand. You're learning some new skills. You're learning how to dribble and shoot, pass, which is really good. The more that you participate, the more likely you are to get probably not a spiritual increasing of spirituality, but more likely you're going to develop that confidence in your own capabilities. And in a sense, that's what we're looking at with empowerment. So you play basketball, you go start training, you start getting better at your skills, more participation, and then you start to go, right, I'm actually not too bad at this. How can I then pass this on to someone else? How can I boost this? How can I strengthen my empowerment? And it really drives people to take control of that to then improve it. Now, the second part of what I've got here is empowerment enables individuals, organizations, and communities to gain control over their lives, which is mainly to move from powerless non-participants to active, effective citizens. So this is a really powerful statement, and I really like this. Empowerment enables individuals, so think individuals first, to gain control over their lives. So they're looking from a non-participant, maybe in something to do with nutrition, maybe someone who doesn't really, actively seek out healthy foods to eat. If they're starting to gain control of their lives, they might see the value in it. They might believe and have the attitude eating healthy is really important. So they go from a non-participant in that exercise or that behavior to starting to become more of an active citizen or an active participant. Now, if you have that in a collection of people, so say starts with one person, suddenly you get an entire class doing it, suddenly you start getting multiple classes, you actually start developing the whole school who is really empowered, taking control of their own, I guess, the factors in their life to make sure that they're choosing a healthier option to eat. That's how you start to get empowerment within a community. You also have organizations in there who, if we don't empower an organization to do this as well, then businesses and supporting organizations, whether it's a government or business or other stakeholders, they're not going to find success because people aren't getting active and involved. Whereas if you find that there's a shift to active and involved in empowering people, you will see increased participation, which is again that participation empowerment link. So, participation is needed to improve empowerment, but also you need empowerment, you need to empower people to improve participation. Probably participation comes first. You can get people involved in a program, in a strategy, a project, and as they start to develop those skills, they start to take more ownership, more control of those things. However, there is a lot of evidence that says that it's kind of the chicken and egg, which one comes first, because empowerment is needed to increase participation. You need to have that capability. I can do this. I can make these changes for that to happen. When communities and individuals feel more empowered, they get more involved in decision making and action and therefore increase their participation. Now, we just covered the levels of participation. So can you imagine if you've got this a community, suburb, let's go with Kalamunda, I don't know why that came first to mind, but it did, who are suddenly really empowered to make these or to have influence on decisions that the council might be making about something that's going to affect their health, whether it's new parks being built, new recreation centre, new farmers markets that might be available to them on the weekends. You can see how these people who are so empowered would be really formidable force. If they want something to happen, they're more likely to get that happening because they're going to be pushing for it and campaigning, advocating for their outcome. Okay, so what we see is empowered communities really act strongly together to get decisions and actions made in their favour. The more empowered they feel, the more motivated they remain. So if we get someone who's empowered say we get a community, really empowered to take control of their exercise and to be living a healthier lifestyle through physical activity, you're going to have a higher level of participation, and they're going to be motivated to stay in that participation, to stay healthy and stay active. And that's going to be something that gets passed on through cultural norms, through social norms, and all the stuff that you can think of that we've already covered. It starts to link it into that. So we have the environmental factors that are going to be critical to them being able to do it. You're going to have the cultural norms where people are just expected to engage in physical activity. And it's all come from people being motivated to then understand what's going to happen from there. So let's have a look at the individual versus community empowerment. Now, I've already touched a little bit on it, but I'll reinforce it here. So the individual is the ability to make their own decisions, have control of their life. As the community is individuals acting together to gain greater influence and control over determinants of health and quality of life in their community. Okay, so quality of life probably links to health status. So if we can have this health status being improved through empowerment, then it's definitely something that we need to be looking into a little bit more. So just a few other little things on empowerment. So empowerment is most likely to occur, especially within the individuals, when they believe or they realize that they can make a contribution towards solving problems, whether they have a right or a responsibility to actually be involved in something. So you see this with, we're just talking a little bit about community development and how it's usually the people that are most motivated, who have the time, who are see these issues that are generated or created in society. They're the ones that are most likely to want to get involved and see these changes happen, and which is going to enhance the community. So if people see that this is my right, I'm part of this community, my local sporting club, it's my right to go and say, hey, we should be working to try and reduce how much our club members drink, how much what sort of protective behaviours we put in place to make sure that little kids in junior sport are safe. And it's my responsibility to do so. If we do this, then you're more likely to see empowerment coming through from the individuals, because the more empowerment, the more feelings that they have that they should be involved in, and therefore that leads to motivation, which leads to more remaining involved in those situations. The other part is empowerment, which basically it enables the people to gain control. That's the real take-home message. And moving from the non-participants to the participants. If you start doing that, then we can start to see a change. And if we tie this all back to the whole point of our course, which is health and your health status, we can start taking control of your lives. Then you can start influencing those determinants of health. All right, now I'll let you determine which ones you can influence and control, but definitely some of the social ones, you might see those directly being addressed through projects and programs that engage in empowerment and participation. Things like addiction or transport, unemployment, social exclusion, stress, work, early life, these things. All of these things can be targeted through individuals' empowerment empowerment through the communities working together to address these particular issues. So there's a couple of application questions, and I'd like you guys to have a go if you've got time to do it this week. If you don't, then it's going to be something that you have to get done. So if you're ahead on these videos and you're finding that they haven't taken as long, you're up to date with your notes, please make sure you do this. You'll have to do these ones at some point. So the first one is use an example of your own choice. It's just questions not worded very well. I'll have to change this. Give an explanation of how each level of participation could be used to implement your chosen community development example. So create an example and then explain how you could use each level to implement it in your community development. Number 2 is to describe 2 of the community interventions that was shown in the documentary Urbanized. Now, you've got some questions as well in your that you'll have on Sector that relate to the documentary, so you can actually access them, and you can add this question on to the end of it as well. Just finally, have a look at Sector. I have put a lot of information up on there for you to do and to give you some additional readings into, especially the relationship between empowerment and participation. There will be a question on this. If it's not in the next assessment, then it definitely will be addressed in the semester 2 exam. So I would definitely make sure you know it. But also, if this is the area of interest to you is community development, then you need to really get your head around this relationship. Okay. Hopefully everything is going smoothly and that you are on top of it and you enjoy Urbanized. Watch it with a perspective of community development, and make sure you are addressing all the questions that are in the worksheet as well. Enjoy.